Hello, welcome to Know the Faith, Defend the Faith. My name is William Hemsworth, and thank you for joining me for this week's episode. Really excited to have my guest on today. He's the founder of CatholicFundraiser.net. Brice Sokolowski, number one website for digital strategies to help apostolates, religious communities, and nonprofits strengthen their missions in this era of new evangelization. Brice, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I was really excited when I came across your website. I know we met mutually through LinkedIn, but with everything going on today, so many apostolates, pro-life groups, non-profits just hurting out there. So I'm really glad to have you on. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to get the word out on how to help a lot of Catholic apostolates and parishes with their fundraising.
Fantastic. So how did you get started in fundraising? What's your background?
So my background is I'm not your traditional fundraiser. I was just volunteering. Well, actually, I was part of my parish's youth group, and my parish priest was running a fundraising campaign and needed help with some phone calls. One thing led to another. I pretty much quit my job, went to work for a diocese, and then after working for a diocese, I found that a lot of lay-led apostolates and religious communities, religious orders, and their convents and monasteries needed help. So I started lending a hand and put up a website, and that's what I do full-time now.
So how long have you been at it?
Great question. I believe I've been at it, I always keep forgetting, at least 8 or 9 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what'd you do beforehand?
So beforehand, I was an IT consultant working for some very large corporations, fantastic career, traveled throughout the United States, for a time worked in the Middle East, worked about 10 years in Europe, and it was actually in Europe where I started fundraising, helping Catholic apostolates in my parish fundraising. Okay. And then it led me back to the United States where I'm full-time here in the great state of Texas, but I still get to travel a whole lot. I've been as far as New Zealand helping Catholics with their fundraising. It's a lot of fun because I get to meet a lot of great Catholics with wonderful missions and ideas, and I just help them grow and expand their mission so they can save lives and save souls.
Amen. That's the goal. Amen to that. Now, quick question. With this pandemic, this global pandemic going on, what has been the impact to some of these groups that you've worked with?
So I would put the impact into two different categories. The first category is several, if not a lot, of Catholic apostolates and parishes pretty much, closed their doors and then just paused everything. And they said, well, we can't do anything. Especially, obviously, they were very event focused with their fundraising, very focused on, obviously people coming in on Sundays. And of course, they saw a significant decline in their fundraising. The second category is, and this is predominantly the category that I've been working in for the past several years, is understanding that the internet is more or less a blessing now. It's not to say that it completely disconnects us from meeting people, but it's a great way of having that first initial connection and definitely having an initial connection with thousands of people. So with those Catholic organizations that I've been helping with for the past several years, they thrived. I've been working with numerous Catholic apostolates that have seen the biggest numbers that they've ever seen in fundraising because they've just, put the pedal to the metal and saw, well, we're in a pandemic. People need hope. People need faith. People need connections. People need solutions, not let's wait, after the pandemic is over. I can only imagine that during a pandemic, that's when missions and apostolates and parishes need to really step to the occasion. And so this category of organizations stepped up. It's not necessarily to say that they fundraised more, but they were just more visible because everybody else was shutting down. And then the ones that stayed were the ones that were prepared, and they're the ones who got all the donations. So those Catholic organizations have seen record numbers in the past few months.
So what are some of the things that they've done over the past few months to get those donations?
So one of the things that they've been really successful at doing is leveraging the internet to meet people or to connect people, that first initial connection, whether it be social media, their website, for example. YouTube is very, very big, obviously podcasts. And it's that initial connection, and they're leveraging the internet to connect with people, not necessarily ask for donations. And I think that's one of the big things that they understand, is that the internet is a great way of connecting with tens of thousands of people so that they can see who you are and know what you do. And then from there, it's the foundation for obviously a great successful fundraising campaign, is that if people know who you are and they believe in what you do and they trust in what you do, they're going to donate eventually. So they've been doing that for several years now, and people recognize, well, they're the only ones standing, I'm going to donate to them.
So do you think it's more of a relationship building strategy versus just coming right out saying, hey, we need cash type thing?
It's always the same. It's everything is relationship based. The thing with the internet that we fail to understand is that the internet allows you to connect with tens of thousands of people. Obviously, it's difficult to have a one-on-one relationship with them, but if you're organized and there's different types of software, and you have to stay organized, and the ability to stay connected and build relationships with tens of thousands of people is a real game changer. You just have to have a different mindset about how to go about and do it.
Now, as the founder of CatholicFundraiser.net, what are some things that you help these organizations with?
I help Catholic organizations simplify their fundraising in the 21st century. There's a lot, everybody has their suggestions and their ideas for fundraising. For example, I was speaking to a lovely apostolate based in California, and they were wanting to run a bake sale. They were wanting to raise events. And, all those stuff take a lot of time, and you got to sell a lot of cupcakes in order to raise a lot of money. When what they really wanted to do is just, help their community, and then people who needed possibly assistance, they just wanted to focus on that. So I really help people understand that, if you're not a baker, don't do bake sales. If you're not an event organizer, don't be an event organizer. If you are a Catholic apostolate, just wave your flag that you're Catholic and what your mission is. And Catholics like to fundraise or like to donate to successful apostolates. And successful simply means that whether it's raining or shining, pandemic or no pandemic, money or no money, they're out there just doing what it is that God wants them to do. And they're not using the internet or taking time out and telling people, well, we can't do things anymore because we don't have any money. I always tell the people I work with, one of the first things that Jesus did with his apostles is he sent them 2 by 2 with nothing. And they were very skeptical about doing it. But they went out and they were very, very successful. And then they came back and they were thrilled with what was happening. And I think it was a lesson for them, and it's a lesson for us, is that if you just believe in the mission that God is calling you to do, you don't really need a lot. You never need a lot. And usually what happens is, people show up and they give to you.
So kind of like finding your passion, sticking with it, what God has called you to do, instead of branching out to something you may not be comfortable in. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah. So obviously with fundraising, you're going to have to do asking. There's no way around it. But definitely don't go asking. Don't try and do it in a secondary way where, I'm going to be selling cupcakes, donate, and then I'll give you the cupcake and you give me the money, and then the money goes to the apostolate. Or I'm going to host an event, come to the event, I'm going to be selling tickets. It's like, just do what you do. And I teach people, like, just focus on what you're doing and learn how to directly ask people. Yes, it's difficult, but I would rather have a direct way of fundraising that's very successful and can be done in a short amount of time, so that way you can do what you really want to do. So instead of doing these elaborate fundraising campaigns that take weeks or months in planning, just, really dilute it down to pretty much, I tell people there are 4 basic things that you need to do with fundraising. Just do those, and then the rest of the time, the majority of the time, you can do your mission.
So what are those 4 basic things you tell people to do?
So the 4 basic things I always reference, I believe it's 1 Corinthians 3:6 or 6:3, and St. Paul simply says, I planted, Apollos watered, and God grew. So I tell people, look, first you gotta plant the seeds, which simply means just get the word out of what you're already doing, and continue doing what you're doing. And then Apollos waters, that means you have to build relationships, engage with people on a regular basis. You don't just water something once. Usually to take an example, if you meet somebody who might be a potential donor, maybe 6 months or a year or two weeks, you have to continually engage with them. So that's the watering part. And then the third thing is allowing God to do the growing. Now, it's not to say that you're not asking, but you have to pay attention. And I referenced the parable of the talents, is that you really have to really be cognizant of the gifts that are being given to you. I meet a lot of people that say that they want to raise $1 million, but they've never raised $2,000. I'm like, well, maybe just focus on the $1,000 donors that you have right now, or the collective group. And then if you just, the parable of the talents, you take care of those people, God is going to do the growing. So that's more or less the philosophy that I take with the people that I help, and they're very, very successful.
Okay. Are there any, I don't want to say cardinal sins, but are there cardinal sins of fundraising out there that you're seeing, or what people shouldn't be doing?
Definitely. There's a few cardinal sins. One of them is trying to figure out who's got the money, and just eyeing people up based off of their job or where they work or where they're from. I'm from Texas, and one of the classic examples of who's got wealth is you don't really know, because sometimes the guy who drives the beaten up truck and has got the old Wranglers and a cowboy hat and just look like he just came off the ranch, he's probably very, very successful. But the guy who's got the suit and might work at a bank or a law firm, he might be in complete debt. For example, doctors, for the most part, we have a lot of debt, and it's unfortunate that if you see these people, you think they have a lot of money, but they don't have a lot of money. So never assume who has money, but just go out there and keep your eyes and ears open on who God is bringing to you, and pay attention to them. So that's one of the major cardinal sins. I would say a second major cardinal sin is just not really presenting your apostolate and offering people the opportunity to donate. A lot of people think, well, if they want to donate, they'll donate. Well, if you don't explain to them what it is that you're doing and how they can help, they're never going to come in. We can't assume that people know how to donate. And this is one of the big things why parishes are struggling, is they're like, well, donations are down, not a lot of people are donating. Well, because Catholics, I'm not saying they have to tithe, but I don't think we've ever explained to Catholics how to get to, whether it's 2, 4, 6, 8, or 10%, of their overall income, or however you want to break down that number. So you have to kind of educate people, and not simply just state, will you donate, but just kind of give them a straw man. I once worked with a parish priest, and that's how he explained it. He was showing his parishioners a straw man and say, look, I don't know where you are, but I'm going to give you a straw man to work with, and you let me know, how it might work for you. So those are two cardinal sins.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So how can we, in this environment, as parishioners for our parishes, as supporters of these great nonprofits out there, how can we help them, I guess, to get word out about donations, what they're doing, things like that?
Well, I mean, obviously with social media, you can spread the message about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I really like, one of the great examples is board members. If you're a board member on a Catholic apostolate, I always tell Catholic apostolates that a board member is required to spread the word every week about what they do and expand the community. It's not to say that they need to find donors all the time, but I would think that they need to at least get the word out on a regular basis. And if there's a Catholic nonprofit that you're interested in, share what it is that it's doing. But for the most part, I think that Catholics who find a nonprofit or apostolate that they really like, they're already spreading the word, because that's how the nonprofits that I'm helping are thriving, because they have this community that's just excited about the mission. And so really that excitement has to come from within. And if you see, a parish or apostolate that's kind of struggling, and I'm not trying to point the finger, But when they're struggling, their heads are down, their shoulders are down, they're kind of walking low, and they're like, what are we going to do? We might have to shut down our doors. And I'm like, well, if you're thinking like that, you're not really going to excite anybody. Nobody's going to want to donate to somebody who's down and out and isn't going to make it. It's just money down the drain. So it starts from within. Get excited. You don't need a lot of money, and just make sure that the people around you are as excited as you are.
Okay, great points. I guess, and one question I've been asked with my parish, because one of my directors of religious education said that donations are down 70% because, masses have been out. Is there some things that these nonprofits, parishes can set up maybe to get donations on a more recurring basis without people having to be present?
That's a great question. And there's an easy solution, but for the most part, nobody really does it. And the solution pretty much has three parts. So if your donations are down by 70%, you have to take a step back and just say, okay, who's donating? It's the classic 20-80 rule, and it usually applies in every parish. Is 80% of donations come from 20% of your donors. You have to just print out that list of your top donors and then figure out, are they donating or are they not donating? If they're not donating, it's more likely because they're not online giving. And, they don't think they're doing anything bad. They're just saying, look, when we get back into the parish, we'll start donating again. But, again, it comes to the point of educating the people that you're asking for donations. Is I tell people, you got to make that list. You got to find the people who are not recurring giving. And then you got to get on the phone and simply explain the situation. I've told parish priest after parish priest after parish priest is like, look, get on the phone, make that list, get on the phone, explain the situation. And before they hang up, send them the link and say, I need you to do a recurring giving right now. And you can end that recurring giving if you don't want to do it when everything is up and running. You can shut it down. But for the time being, you've got to do this, I would really hope. And when you're on the phone and you explain, people are rational. If you explain the situation in a rational way over the phone, they're going to say, yes, it makes sense. I didn't think of it like that. So that for me is the number one solution. But for the most part, a lot of people don't do it because they're like, well, I don't want to ask people. Like, well, if you're not going to get on the phone, well, you're 70% down today. Maybe next month you're down 80%. And guess what? That money's never going to come back. And then if you look long term over the next year, it's going to take you a very long time to pick things back up. And then when people come back in, they see a parish that's demoralized. There's not enough money. Things are breaking down. And then you have to do the capital campaign that really never excites anybody. So you might as well do this because later down the line, you're going to drain people.
Do you think the difference between some of these organizations that are thriving and then not is that ability to set up the automatic donations?
What definitely you want to be going down that route because obviously, your credit card bill, your bank uses that, your electricity, your water, your gas, your car payment, your mortgage, everything runs off of this. But for some reason, most parishes and most nonprofits haven't figured out that this is the way to go. So it's pretty easy to set up. There's tons of different software, even with there's some Catholic organizations out there that will help you set up the recurring giving. And, but then one of the pushbacks is like, well, we have to pay like 2.9% on the transaction. Well, banks today, they'll charge you for checks. Then you've got the check, the delayed, and you hope that you don't lose the check. And then you got the cash. So it's a very inefficient process, checks and cash, where just, do the recurring giving. You're going to have the cash flow that's moving forward. And sure, you have to pay the 2.9%. But for peace of mind and knowing that it's going to be coming every week and every month, you can strategically plan and know what to do in the months ahead.
It's funny you say that. I work for a bank during the week. That's how I pay my bills. And it's just the cost of the recurring payment is so minimal compared to any issues that come with checks later on. So I'm glad you brought that up. So Brice, how can we learn more about your organization? And if any organizations are out there listening, how can they get in contact with you to maybe consult with you and ask for your help on this?
So they can visit CatholicFundraiser.net. And on the website, I have a guide called the 10 Commandments to Catholic Fundraising. These are 10 things that I've learned that have pretty much given me the foundation to successfully fundraise based on my Catholic faith. And it's helped thousands of Catholics. I get emails every week saying, this is great. This is a breath of fresh air, because when they read it, they recognize, okay, I don't have to park my faith and park my mission to the side when I'm fundraising. They recognize that, okay, this is a way to fundraise in an effective way based on my Catholic faith. I reference the Catechism. I reference the social doctrine of the Catholic Church. I've referenced saints. I've referenced popes. I mean, if we think about over the 2,000 years of the Catholic Church, we're blessed, especially if you go to like Europe or the East Coast. There are just these unbelievable monasteries, cathedrals, chapels. It's like, every generation has had to figure out the whole fundraising, question. And the great thing about the saints and the popes and the writings is some people have written down what they did. Like, for example, St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, he wrote extensively. Statistically, I think like 80 or 90% of all the letters he ever wrote in his life, and you include the Ignatian spirituality, but 90 to 80% were appeal letters. And writing to his donors on a regular basis, he was very adamant about not just writing to ask for donations, but writing and responding to people, thanking them. He was forcing his fellow Jesuits to go out and take care of people, especially their donors. And if you think about I always forget his name. I think it was St. Vincent de Paul. He founded the Sisters of Charity. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. He was very big at that as well. He recognized that in order he had a big vision of what to do in Paris, but he said, look, I'm going to need the support of people. But he brought them in and he developed prayer groups for them. He took care of them. So it's having this collective process of how do I do my mission and not feel so bad with fundraising, because with a lot of people with their fundraising, they focus too much on the money. It's just a tool, it's just, it's not that you're asking somebody for money and feel bad about it, but it's like you can do something better with that money than they could themselves. And you have to just realign your thinking. And so that's what I try and teach on my website, CatholicFundraiser.net. I have the 10 Commandments to Catholic Fundraising. I also produce a weekly vlog, just teaching people what I'm doing. And if they have questions, they can reach out to me directly on my website, or I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I try and be everywhere.
Great. Now the guide, what's the cost for the guide on your website?
I must be crazy because I'm giving it for free.
Best price ever, people. Check it out. No excuse.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people 99% of everything that I do is absolutely for free. There's that 1% that does cost something, but it just helps me keep the lights on and keep doing what I really want to do, is help as many Catholics. My mission is to try and help as many Catholic apostolates fundraise so that they can save more lives and save more souls. And from what I see, it's a great benefit to them that they know how to fundraise effectively so they can go and do that.
Well, amen. Brice, thank you for taking some time today, coming on, talking about what we can do to help these organizations, how these organizations can turn around and help us in return. And thank you for the work that you're doing. The website, again, is CatholicFundraiser.net. Brice, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
All right. God bless you as well.